Hello. Welcome back to Cinderella Phenomenon Evermore. So Claude is giving us gifts, and I think that's kind of what's going on right now. So let's get to it, I guess. No matter what I do, I can never make a difference. He died because of me. It's all my fault. They have so much gold, and yet they won't spare a single coin. This is. If only I could get rid of him. All he does is take. Take, take, take. The voices continue to pound inside my head and like a trapped animal fighting its cage. I become aware that I'm in a dream, a nightmare. The moment I realize, I begin to stir. I attempt to wake myself up, but stop when I hear another voice at the edge of my consciousness. How could they miss me? It's not as if they haven't already replaced me. The voice is familiar, and for a few moments it's the only echo I hear in my mind. Whose voice is this? I try to listen, but to no avail. The others' voices soon press into my mind, making it impossible to hear anything else. I force myself awake. My heart is beating erratically in my chest, and my head is pounding. I feel a faint, even though I've just woken up. I glance slowly around my room with sleepy eyes, searching for Claude, but he is not here. Ever since we became engaged, he has been sleeping in this room with me. The king was against it at first. Even I could not help but be surprised by Claude's bold proposal. Yet according to him, such a thing is tradition in Brigantia. Still, it took father many months to agree. In the end, he only relented with a month remaining to the wedding, saying that he found it more acceptable. It's pleasant when I wake up and actually find him sleeping next to me, but I notice a small note on the bedside table and sigh. He has another morning meeting with my father, it seems. I put a hand to my forehead and closed my eyes. And that nightmare. Ever since I became a Tenenbaum bearer 2 years ago, I have been having these nightmares. Parfait tells me that they become milder the more I learn to put them to the back of my mind. The voices usually are not so terrible that they drag me under like that. The last time the voices were this loud, it was because I was surrounded by negativity from somewhere close by. I sit up in a bed and turn to look at the beast plush that lies beside my pillow. That negativity isn't coming from Claude, right? I'm uncertain whether or not it's the truth of my imagination. But even though he is, for the most part, his usual self, there are moments when he feels different. There are moments where his smile wavers and a tinge of melancholy comes into his eyes. The first time I saw it was when he gave me the beast blush. That was 6 days ago. I've asked Claude multiple times if something is amiss, and he always waves me off with a smile. I glance again around the room that we now share. Most of it has not changed, although Claude has added some things, namely a piano that sits one corner. He insisted on putting it into the room when we first moved in, and I had no qualms about it, not when I know the playing calms him down. Besides, I do not mind watching him play. Sometimes when I'm in the mood, I play with him. Perhaps I should suggest playing together sometime today, later. I stifle a sigh and as I slide off my bed and move to get dressed. A maid arrives to call me breakfast and then leads me to a dining hall. Breakfast is livelier today, on account of Lance, who sits beside Emmeline, listening to everything the royal family is discussing with a broad smile on his face. Even though the king and Claude are both absent from the table, Lance talks enough for the both of them. In fact, ever since he arrived, Lance has somehow managed to put himself in the spotlight for every family meal. He does not start conversations on his own, but he is always quick to respond and usually with a smile. He seems inherently interested in everything he hears. It is amazing to me that he manages to be so animated and attentive so early in the morning. My thoughts are preoccupied during breakfast, hovering somewhere between Claude's duties and my own. I listen while I eat, sometimes nodding around along with the conversation. I have almost cleared my plate when Lance speaks directly to me, jolting me out of my reverie. Have you ever spoken with the witches in Bargantia, Princess? I look up and blink, trying to piece together what he might be saying. The witches from Bargantia? Claude tells me that you interact with many witches because of your position as a Tenenbaum bearer. He puts a hand on his chest and gives a slight bow. Even sitting down in front of the half-finished breakfast plate, he manages to make the motion look somehow dignified. I must stress that, as always, it is an honor to be in your presence. I cannot help but smile at him. Most of the time, being the Tenenbaum bearer is much more of an ideal than a blessing, but I have learned to appreciate the responsibility. Please, Lance, there is no need for that. I shake my head. And no, I do not usually speak with Bargantian witches. I usually have no reason to, unless there is some kind of upset. From what I heard though, the witches in Bargantia are content. There are still incidents involving witches in Annesley ever so often, but thankfully those incidents have been on the decline in the last year. It does seem that way though. I cannot say that with absolute certainty because I do not have any witches acquaintances. Lance's eyes brighten. He seemed to be lost in memory for a few moments, but then he speaks up. Many of the witches I do know have visited the castle to perform extraordinary magical feats. Mother has a few witch acquaintances that help her decorate her midnight parties with enchanted objects. Midnight parties? Emmeline looks at Lance in wonder. Mother is a bit of a night owl, so she throws many parties at nights. She refers to her weekly evening celebrations as midnight balls. Ah, that sounds lovely. They are quite lovely, if not a bit overwhelming at times. But I suppose that is to be expected. Bargantia is known for its animated nightlife. It's sleepy when the sun is still up and lively when the moon rises. The balls are particularly special nighttime celebrations with renowned performers. One year, when Klaude and I were still young, my mother invited a witch whose specialty was magical gardening. Magical gardening? The witch conjured an entire field of colored roses. That's... Lance laughs. Suffice to say, it left quite an impression. I think we learned to appreciate roses a lot more after we gifted an entire field of them. I wonder if such showcases are part of the reason Claude loves roses so much. I think of the rose locket and smile. What sort of magic do you specialize in, Princess Lucette? I look up at Lance, momentarily perplexed. Delora taught me shield and ice first, so I'm probably most comfortable with those spells, but I do not consider them my specialty. Lucette is very good with eyes. She made a sculpture of Claude for once for his birthday. Emmeline. Lance stares at me with clear impress. You made a sculpture of eyes? That's amazing. Claude thought it was amazing too, even if I could never get his features right. He teased me about it for a long time afterwards, but he was definitely distressed when I set the sculpture outside in the sun so that it would melt. There's a broom here that she animated to clean all on its own too. No, Mr. Broom is entirely the Laura and Parfait's fault. I did not want to bring it here at first, but in the end agreed to it because the thing wouldn't leave me alone when I visited the tavern. I brought it here and tweaked the enchantment on it so that it would sleep on its own. Now at least Laura cannot renew the enchantment on it to tease me. Rod looks up from his plate and eyebrows raised. A little more than a year ago, Lucette created a light show in the dining hall. There was electricity bouncing everywhere. The lightning spell was a difficult beginner spell. Lance laughs, looking delighted. So you are a master of all trades. I wouldn't expect anything less from the Tenenbaum bearer. It is a shame that you can't come to Bargantia for a long enough time to meet the witches there. They speak of you fondly, even if they cannot see you often. They do? Most certainly. What is that? That is surprising. But perhaps I am making more progress with everyone than I first thought. I think about what Lance said about my inability to visit Brigantia. Unfortunately, I cannot leave Ansley for extended periods of time when I am the Tenenbaum bearer. I have to remain in the kingdom because I am tied to the crystal, but my thoughts shift to Claude. He has gone to visit Brigantia a number of times without me, but I know that he is sad that I cannot join him. Because of my own position as a Tenenbaum bearer, I could never go to Brigantia and become a princess there. That is the reason my wedding engagement with Claude will make him a crown prince of Angeli. It is also the reason Claude was forced to step down as the crown prince of Brigantia and hand the title over to his brother. Lance breaks through my thoughts with a question. Might I be so bold as to ask for a demonstration? I'd be happy to tell you more about Claude if you would show me some of your magic. Ophelia, who had been quietly listening to our conversation, suddenly stands from the table with a smile. I'll leave you all to it, Glenn, but please, no electric mishaps. I'm more capable of controlling my electricity. Ophelia just smiles at my embarrassment before excusing herself from the table. A magic demonstration? I'm still considering what spell to cast when the door in the dining hall swings open and Claude walks inside. He looks somehow downtrodden, his expression broody. Karma, you just came in time for the princess's magic demonstration. Claude turns and looks at me quizzically, his expression softening. Then I have arrived at the perfect time. He keeps walking until he is standing behind my chair. I'm relieved to see his initial stress completely disappeared from his face. I turn my gaze to the rest of the table. Everyone is looking at me expectantly. A spell? Should I do something I'm comfortable with? Or something new? I think something new wouldn't hurt, right? I mean, she might fail, but it's all part of the fun, right? Failing. I guess attempt to create a rose. A nice spell would be safe, but perhaps I can cheer Claude out with something new. I've made a lot of things before, but never a rose. Still, it cannot be difficult, surely. I hold up my hand, cupping them in front of me, to create a small platform. I squint down at the palm of my hands, concentrating the magic in my body into my fingers. The magic beneath my skin is a subtle thing, but 2 years into practice has made it easier to grab it and shape it into something. I close my eyes briefly, imagining the shape of a rose. The first thing that comes into my mind is a rose locket on Claude's chest. I attempt to draw the shape of it out into reality. If I can shape eyes, this is nothing. Oh, that's... I open my eyes and stare at the object in my hands. It is indeed a rose, but much to my disgruntlement, it is flat, extremely flat. Its shape resembles a flat metallic shape of Claude's rose locket, only it is awkwardly balanced on a vibrant green stem. Single, wiry leaf just juts up from its stem. I sigh as the rose caves on itself. This is not impressive at all. I will try again. But... Lucette, wait! Claude takes a step forward and then reaches past my shoulder. He touches his fingers onto the petal of a delicate rose. Much to my relief, they do not fall. I think it's beautiful. I agree with Emmeline. Claude smiles as he plucks the rose from my fingers. He holds a strange flattened flower up to his nose and smells it. It also smells far better than a normal rose. I'm inclined to agree, and the rose made out of magic is more special than a rose plucked from a rose bush. It's lovely, Lucette. But it's so flat. It looks like it might fall off the stem at any moment. I shake my head and slightly and attempt to snatch it away from Claude. He only holds it out of my reach with a mischievous smile. Fine, you can keep it then. Claude smiles. He holds the rose carefully in one hand, then leans down to kiss my cheek. I most certainly will. He keeps the rose clutched against between his fingers as Lance turns to me. That was amazing, Lucette. Your magic is beautiful. And fierce. Sometimes too much so. I scoff. You make it sound like my magic is aggressive when it is not. I barely have any reason to use magic in the first place. Most of the time I use it for the convenience. And then I sometimes use it to make gifts for Claude just to upstage him. Lance thanks me again for the demonstration before excusing himself. He and Emmeline rushes off for an extremely important plans. Rod heaves out a straight sigh before eventually following after them. I hope they are not trying too hard for my birthday celebration tomorrow. I remain with Claude while he eats late breakfast and then heads out with him when he is done. I know that our time together will not last long. Claude has to take off to another lesson, and I have a meeting with my father. It is another discussion about implementation of new laws in Angeli. Before the two of us go on our own separate ways, Claude turns to me with the rose still in his fingers. I'm going to return this to the room first. I'm sure that when you see it later tonight, I will have it caved in on itself. You have no faith in me, Lucette. It is more that I do not have faith in the rose. Claude flicks my forehead, bringing me back to reality. Next time you do that, I'll freeze your pretty eyelashes. Claude bats his eyelashes at me and then chuckles. I wouldn't mind. It would be a nice change to the aesthetic, I think. He plants a quick kiss on my forehead. Until we reconvene, love. After a quick exchange of farewells, we separate and go our own ways. The day turns out to be busier than I anticipated, except for a short hour break in between. I barely see Claude. He manages to give me his gifts for the day in between our responsibilities. It is a feat for the eyes. A simple yet elegant blue dress decorated with lilies. Claude is always good at selecting dresses. Given his prior experiences with them, the king always seems surprised when I tell him that Claude helps me compile my wardrobe. I know I will have to wear this dress sometime soon as well. This thought hangs in my mind as I continue on about my business. The rest of the day passes in a blur. Even the evening moves quickly. I have enough time to sit down to dinner with my family before I have a meeting with the witch in from town. By the time I am finally able to head back to my room, it is 9:10. My body feels incredibly heavy, and all I want to do is crash into my bed. I have just turned the bend in the corner when I hear soft music coming through the halls. I stop to listen. Claude must be playing the piano. Strange. He usually does not play if I'm not there to play with or watch him. I walk the rest of the way to my bedroom, then open the door so quietly so as to not disturb Claude. The music wafts from the room like a gentle breeze. The minute I step inside, I see Claude at the beautiful piano, finger gliding across the keys to create the beautiful sounds emanating from the instrument. He is so immersed in the music that he has not noticed when I step inside and shut the door behind me. He looks solemn yet at peace, his eyebrows drawn into concentration as he began to focus on the keys. Even as I watch, the rigidness of his expression begins to crumble away into a gentle smile. This song, it is beautiful. Will I break his concentration if I sit beside him? I think you should join him. Join him, yeah, join him. I mean, like, can you imagine? Like, he finishes the song and then he just looks behind and sees you like a jump scare. Well, I guess if you join him, that will also be a jump scare, but an earlier jump scare is a better jump scare, I think. The earlier the jump scare, the better, because uh, yes, let's not question my logic. I just think an earlier jump scare is better than a later jump scare. It'll be fine. Claude knows how to focus. I make my way over to where he is sitting at the piano and quietly slide in the bench beside him. The song does not stop, even when Claude inclines his head towards me slightly. The gentle smile never falters. In fact, his eyes seem to gleam even more when he notices I sit beside him. Well, well, this is the most pleasant surprise. I was wondering when you'd be back. I set one of my hands down onto his knees and leaned my head onto his shoulder. It has been a long day. I'm sorry I couldn't lighten your workload, darling. You deserve a more relaxed day today. You deserve to be spoiled. His playing at the piano creases as he puts his hand on top of mine. Claude, you spoil me every day. Sometimes too much. It is fine. I furrow my eyebrows slightly, realizing that my presence has probably put a damper on his playing. I interrupted your playing, didn't I? I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing, darling? You know what I always say. Claude smiles at me mischievously. I always notice the most pertinent thing, and you are far more important than any piano piece. He laces his fingers through mine before leaning forward and presses a gentle kiss to my lips. The feeling of his lips on mine causes my earlier stress to melt away completely. Everything around us fades to a gentle blur when I kiss him back. For some time, it feels like the world stopped around us, and then there's just the two of us. At times like this, it feels like we have all the time in the world for each other. I'm the first to pull away. I poke Claude in the chest and smile as I slide off the bench. What song were you playing? I wonder. Is it really necessary to keep it a secret? This song wasn't meant to be a surprise for tomorrow, was it? Claude looks at me with lips curved into a cat-like smile. I'm gonna assume that is a yes. I move to sit down on the edge of my bed. If you're here playing, I am assuming that you're done for the day. Claude lets out a sigh as he leans dramatically back onto the piano, one arm draped across its surface, the other one resting on his forehead. I'm afraid the night has yet more excitement for me. Is it a meeting with father, or assignments for a history tutor? Claude scoffs at me. I'll have you know that I'm on top of all my assignments. I'm just as excellent as a pupil as I'm an instructor. Your ego knows no bounds. It's confidence, love. Confidence. Claude sighs as he stands up and stretches. Afterwards, he turns to look at me. I'm afraid I have certain plans for tomorrow that I must check on. Plans for the birthday party? You really don't need to work so hard for me, Claude. Much to my surprise, Claude's lips smirks, his expression fading to something more somber. I will always work hard for you, Lucette. I will do anything for you. That will never change even if I cannot be... He stops suddenly, his lips sealed. You cannot be what? Claude looks at me, startled over a few moments. He steps back towards the door, then abruptly he begins to laugh. Never mind me. A tired man says a lot of peculiar things. When he smiles, the look is once again melancholy. It is a sad smile. Claude, are you okay? Yes, Lucette. I'm just a little tired. Don't look at me like that. I'll be fine to come tomorrow morning. Claude? He stops in front of the door, hands on a knob. Yes, darling? You remember that we promised there would be no secrets between us, right? I would never forget a promise I made you with you, Lucette. He says the words enough to conviction that I cannot help but be relieved. This is just passing stress. I promise. I nod my head, relenting. Now I regret to say it, but I'll be a little late tonight, so you do not need to wait for me. He blows me a kiss. I love you, Lucette. Good night. Good night, Claude. He steps out to the door and closes behind him. Once he is gone, I fall back into my bed, my eyelids fluttering closed. My body welcomes the softness of the sheets and comfort of my pillows. I wonder if there's some way to figure out why Claude looks so sad. Someone could tell me how to feel him when he's like this. The question whirls around in my mind for a while. But it's not long before the desire to sleep overwhelms my worry. Not long after I close my eyes, I find myself drifting into slumber. When I next wake and my bedroom is dark and quiet, the first thing I'm aware of is my heart, which is beating painfully against my chest. Another nightmare. I put a hand to my forehead as I glance around my room. I notice that Claude is lying beside me, undisturbed. The gentle rise and fall of his chest, along with soft breathing, tells me that he is asleep. I find the clock in my room and stifle a sigh. It is just past midnight. I have no idea how long Claude has been asleep, and I do not want to wake him. Sometimes, when the nightmares are terrible, I end up waking Claude to discuss them with him. Other times, when I am sure that he needs rest, I do my best to forget the nightmares on my own. I could use some fresh air. I quietly slide off the bed, make my way towards the door. I glance over my shoulder at Claude one last time before stepping outside and shutting the door behind me. The palace corridors are quiet at night, save for the muted footsteps of the patrolling knights. At first, I'm at a loss for what to do with myself. I could sit in the garden, or I could walk through the hallways until the voice fades. My legs begin to move on their own. Every step sends me down the hallway and closer to a branching corridor. I am not entirely sure where I am heading, but I tell all the knights I meet on the way that I am only wandering for some peace of mind. I have just moved into a conjoined corridor when I see a familiar face. Princess? Jurian stops in front of me, her eyebrows drawn together in a clearly anxious expression. Good evening, Jurian. Good evening, Your Highness. Couldn't sleep? It has been a restless night. Are you still working? For a little while longer, yes. And what about you? Just taking a midnight stroll? I've bumped into Jurian quite a few times on these aimless night strolls, and she always worries. I was. There is no cause for concern. You say that, Princess, but any royal's actions are a concern to us knights. And now I have to keep my eyes out for you, both of you, and the prince. The prince? Rod is also up? Oh no, Princess of Regentia. He was out here earlier murmuring to himself. That is a little strange. I saw him head to the dining hall last. I sent a few knights over the way just in case. Perhaps he just left his room for a midnight snack. Claude used to be out midnight all the time when I first came here. It sounds like typical Bagentian lifestyle. Anyway, if you do need anything from me, I'll be on patrol for a little while longer. Don't hesitate to call on me, Princess. I will not. Thank you, Jurian. Jurian turns to walk away, but then pauses to glance over her shoulder. Oh, and Princess? I hope we get to practice together again soon. Yes, I hope so too. It has been a long time since all four of us have been able to participate in mock battles. Jurian flashes a small smile before she strides away from me to continue her patrol. If Lance is still out right now, perhaps I should go see him. Without another thought, I begin to make my way to the dining hall. Sure enough, the first thing I notice when I step in the dining hall is Lance, who is sitting at the head of the dining table. His hands clasped as if in prayer. He is murmuring something beneath his breath. Lance? Lance glances up at me, bewildered. His shock almost makes me feel guilty. Did I interrupt something? No, not at all. He lets out a deep sigh, his shoulders sagging slightly. A weight seems to fall off of them as he does so, and when he looks up, he once again exudes his usual cheer. I was wandering around the palace when I noticed the dining hall was empty. I wanted to sit down a few moments to practice a speech, but he looks down at the table. The downcast expression takes me by surprise, as he is very uncharacteristic of his usual charismatic glance. Sometimes I get so caught up memorizing that I forget everything around me. I'm sorry. There is no need to apologize, but you are practicing a speech for whom? It is fine, you don't need to speak about it if you do not want to. I'm about to head out again when Lance calls my name, making me stop. Have you ever given a direct speech to people, Princess? Before I used to shun people, I disliked going anywhere near them. Since breaking my curse, however, I have learned to open up to the townsfolk. The king has me address them directly on our month's ride out to town. Of course. I I see. If you are asking me that question, I'm assuming that it's because you are practicing a speech for a big audience. Nan smiles, a little half-heartedly. I was. The moment Claude becomes engaged with you, I become the next in line for the Brigantian throne. Father has been waiting for me to give a speech officially announcing myself as the Brigantian's crown prince. Did I just say clown prince? Oh my goodness. I am so dumb. Or maybe it's just the Asian in me. The Asian in me just coming out saying crown. I'm just saying clown instead of crown. Must be, must be. The moment Claude asked for my hand in marriage, he had to relinquish his position as Crown Prince of Regentia. It never occurred to me that Lance would have to take over something that I was unprepared for. And how is the speech going? Lance sighs. Terribly. I die a slow death in front of large clouds. I did it again. Clouds. I just said clouds. So sad, so sad. The Asian in me is coming out today. I don't know why. Claude has always been better at speeches than I have. I prefer just speaking to people one-on-one. Large crowds are terrifying. He has stage fright? No doubt that you both have your own strengths. Talking to so many people at once requires practice. Right. Lance still looks disheartened. The look on his face is similar to Claude's, that I cannot help but the small stab on my heart. I think he should ask his brother, just because he was the Brigantian prince, right? Brigantia has their own customs and traditions. So asking somebody who has experience in that field and also like has done it before in front of a Brigantian audience, I think he should ask Claude for help. Even though Claude might be unwilling, he might be unwilling, but come on, your brother, you gotta help him, right? You said Claude is better at spotlights, right? Then he should be able to help you. The two of you are brothers. He knows you better than anyone else. Even though Claude gets jealous of Lance frequently, the two of them are still brothers. I know Claude loves him. And Claude's overwhelming confidence allows me to speak to crowds with ease. Most people find him very charismatic. Hasn't Claude been really busy recently? I wouldn't want to take any of the free time he has with you. Lance. Lance has a forlorn look in his eyes. He stares past me at the door, his eyebrows furrowed. Llama. He flushes a crimson red at me and smiling despite myself. He and Claude are similar in the strongest ways. You may as well ask Claude. I wouldn't mind sitting in during your practices if time with me was ever a problem. Besides, I already get ample time with Claude, despite what he might say. Most of the time, he just needs needlessly dramatic. Though I do have to agree that we both have been pressed for time this week. Hopefully things settle down after tomorrow's celebration. I'll try asking him then, though say it more decisively. You'll ask him. Lance laughs, a little sheepishly. Then he clears his throat and speaks in a voice filled conviction. I promise I will ask him. Good. Oh. Lance looked at me wide-eyed. What is it? It is past midnight, isn't it? I had almost forgotten. Forgotten? To wish you a happy birthday. The smile Lance gives me is as shiny as it almost sparkles. A very blessed happy birthday to you, Lucette. May both of your nights and your days be filled with endless cheer and good company. Thank you, Lance. If Claude knew Lance was the first to wish me a happy birthday, he would cry. The thought makes me smirk. My conversation with Lance is cut short after that when, at one point, instead of responding to him with words, I respond with an unintended yawn. I excused myself first that night, relieved that my conversation with Lance has helped me clear the nightmares from my mind. I'm sure that Lance will be able to solve his problems with help. As for my problems, I pushed the thought of Claude's melancholy smile from my mind. For now, it is better not to think about it. Claude will not want me to enjoy my birthday celebration without worrying about him. So for now, I'll set aside these worries. I'll walk back to my room feeling a lot lighter than I had when I first left it. Lilies and Roses, Chapter 3. Alright, let's go. We finished the chapter. Stretch. So, the princess's birthday? Mm-hmm. Very good, very good. Princess's birthday will be the next chapter. So if you want to watch that, you can always subscribe. I do a lot of visual novels, so you can look forward to that. Like if you like, dislike if you dislike. Comment down below what you think of this episode, and if I said any memorable quotes or something like that. Suggest some games for me to play, and I think that's all. Thank you for watching and have a good day.